Oh, just a second. Hey, it's James Frederick with Frederick Studio Provincetown. I thought it would be funny to start off that way because we're all so distracted by these devices. Hence this show, this body of work that I call Analog Bliss. So I painted a series of pieces that are, for me, representing what we've lost because of these devices. 2 years ago, I stayed out at a dune shack and I went offline, worked on some beautiful watercolors, but I was off the grid for a week. And it was very life-changing for me. At the same time, I was reading a book called Stolen Focus by Johann Hari. It actually starts with him being in Provincetown, which was kind of interesting. But as I read more and more about how we have been hijacked by these devices, and it wasn't just by mistake, it's all intentional, so that revenue can be generated for advertising for all of the apps and social media and everything that we're engaged with. I was enraged. He mentioned another book in his book called Digital Minimalism, which I just read over this break over the winter, and continue to just infuriate me to realize that unbeknownst to me, I have been hijacked. There's all of these lulls in time in my life where I would just pick up my phone and then I would be on it for 20 minutes. I would check texts, I would check social media, I would check the news, what's the weather, and what's the stock market? Like, do I need to know that all, like, every half hour? And so there are a lot of things that I no longer have in my life when I have only room for this. So what I've done over these years, and especially since this last winter break, is really hone back on how much I use this. And Digital Minimalism by Cal Newport is a great book because it tells me how to have digital serve me rather than me serve it. So I painted a body of work that I think represents what we, or I should say what I get the most out of not being on my phone. I wanted to do a body of work about this issue. And as I thought about it, it was like I'm so angry, like a lot of the ideas were about a cluttered mind, no free time. I could paint a lot of angry paintings, but instead I felt like I should paint what we could have. There's a lot of benefit to not being distracted, being able to focus, being in the moment. So I want to take you through these pieces. I have 9 paintings of various sizes, and like usual, I'll take you through one at a time. They are abstract, and I think the titles probably give away what my intent was. And I always say that I won't talk a lot about them, but I always end up telling you a lot about them. And there will be a link here so you can get more information about the pieces below. And I will do that. Okay, I've got quite the lineup to tell you about. So the first piece is called Physical Nuance, and it is 16 by 16 and a lot of texture and movement in a lot of these pieces. And you'll find that a lot of them are a bit monochromatic. I kind of went with a bit more of a primary scheme for the most part, because I think that it speaks to how primary it is for us to be simplified in our lives. So this is called, again, Physical Nuance, and it's about the luxury of being able to have a moment or an exchange with someone in real time and be able to notice all of the little things that are happening. So physical nuance. And this piece is 24 by 24, and I call it Basking in the Present. So it is reading a little darker on the screen. This is more of a bronzy copper versus a darker kind of brown. But anyway, it is called Basking in the Present, and it's really just, for me, it speaks a little about the ability to just be quiet, like not feeling the impulse of like, oh, pick up my phone, and just being in the moment. And there's kind of a glow for me that happens when I can do that. So that informs the palette and kind of the calm brushing, brush strokes on this one. So then I'm going to go to these 12 by 12s. This one is called Focus. And, that's really the crux of it, right? Being able to focus. This one has kind of the idea of it is that there's a brightness to being able to think clearly about something and to focus, and I wish that my attention span could be kind of constant, but as you can kind of see, there's kind of a wave happening and then a moment where I'm more focused and less focused as I go through the mindscape. This piece down here, love this richness of the greens. This is called Noticing. So this piece is about the idea of a little bit playing off of physical nuance, but really more specific about kind of a visual bounty that we have when we go out into nature, and actually, instead of passing through nature, being part of nature. There are so many greens. I think there are more greens than there are any other color. The way the green picks up light. And so this piece was my version of being able to really notice all of the different textures and colors of the great outdoors. It's called Noticing. And this piece, it's a bit larger. It's 30 by 30. And this one is called Flow. And I call it flow because there's a phenomenon in the brain when you are in a creative flow state that fires. There is a kind of a neurological activity when you're in that creative state. And I wanted to illustrate that, but I also wanted to do it because this activity of the brain, when we're in that creative state, is the same part of the brain that is activated with analog conversations. Yeah, believe it or not, that is training the brain as we have fewer and fewer analog conversations to not activate this part of our brain. So this is all about the flow state. And I just call the piece simply Flow. This piece is also 30 by 30. And I call it Freed. And it really, for me, represents the freed up time that I get from not being on my phone, involuntarily, just, for 20 minutes and realize that I've lost 20 minutes. So this has a little bit of darkness, just to illustrate the light of being in charge of your life and staying off of the device. So this one's called Freed. And I have another few 12 by 12s. This piece is called Intention, and it's really about having a plan, having the time and the mind space to make a plan and work towards something, having an intention versus randomness. And this piece, also 12 by 12, is called Desire. And this speaks a little bit to that mind space where, we can actually focus and have original thought and think through things and be able to know what our desires are, not have them be prescribed via a social media influencer or anything else, but really what are my desires, and having time to find those. This final piece is 16 by 16, and finally it's called Space for Thought, and it's really the concept of eliminating all of the external stimulus which distracts us from original thought. Like if I didn't know what you think about everything and what everyone thinks about everything, can I determine what I think about things? So this speaks a lot for me to the news cycle, and how much do I want to consume, and how do I want it spun, and can I make my own deductions from fact? So that one is called Space for Thought. So that is the 9 pieces. It's a very colorful presentation, which I think is great because it illustrates how colorful a analog, simple life can be. Analog Bliss. Thank you for joining. Everything is right here, linked in. If you want any more information, the next exhibition is on August 1st, and the body of work is called A Fresh Take. And just to give you a little insight about that particular body of work, I recently took a workshop returning to the Fine Arts Work Center after 11 years from the last time I took a workshop there with Alison Bechtel at that time. But I took a workshop last week or was the week before, I'm not even sure, with an artist that I totally love their work and what they do. And they reminded me of the luxury of painting and the privilege that it is, and how it's a bit lyrical and magical, and to slow down and be appreciative of that. So these pieces are a fresh take, thought about in a different way of some of the subject matter that you've seen me paint before, but again, in a kind of fresh and different way, kind of leaning into some of the prompts and exercises from the work that I did there. And I may even show some of that work, we'll see, in that next exhibition on August 1st. So a fresh take, August 1st, and then we have one on August 29th, and then maybe on Columbus Day weekend, but who knows? I'm gonna do more analog living in the meantime. Until then, see you.